Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the 7Hz Legato. This is the latest from 7Hz, and first of all I just want to apologize if I'm a little bit late to the party. I know it's been out already for a couple of weeks, but only now I was able to get my hands on a unit, so here we go. Anyway, 7Hz, probably best known for timeless. They revolutionized the planar game, let's put it that way. The timeless is and still is unquestionably a reference and one of the best planars out there. Yes, there have been planars which have improved upon its original formula. The Buzetian Heyday edition, one of them. The nice HAKUGEI F1, another one. The P1 Max is another one that I also personally prefer. But the reality is this: 7Hz timeless put 7Hz on the map first of all, and we owe them the merit for being the ones that were brave enough to launch a planar at an accessible price, and not only at an accessible price but well tuned, because before that what was available was an absolute joke. Anyway, they gave us the timeless. They gave us the Zero, which in essence was contrary to what people might think, but in essence it was a moondrop shoe. It shares the same driver, just in a different shell, and almost identical tuning. Super detailed, super clean. It brought into the $20 price bracket a very mature tuning, which was not common. And then they also brought us the Eternal, which unfortunately was not on the same league as the first two. Now, well, they then had another remake of the timeless, but for me, I don't think that remake was in any way as successful, or not only not as successful, but the price bracket that it already was starting to reach made no sense, because it didn't really bring anything extra over the other available planars already. Anyway, now they bring us the Legato, a dual dynamic IEM, very smartly done, contrary to the majority of the dual dynamics where the drivers sit next to each other, be it a 10 and a 6 or a 10 and an 8mm, whatever it is that they use. They usually sit the drivers next to each other. Either the smaller driver is facing straight away the nozzle, and the second driver, the bigger one, is backing that up through a duct, or vice versa. You have the main driver facing the nozzle, the main exit nozzle, and then the smaller driver is, so there's been various permutations of how to set that up. They've used kind of like a coaxial approach, in that they have the 6mm sitting, yes, closest to the nozzle, but in a kind of an enclosure, kind of in a case that sits offset slightly from the 12mm. And I guess as well, that was probably one of the only ways to do it, because being a 12mm driver, it was going to be complicated to put one next to each other and then create the necessary connection between the two drivers so that you could get the output of them. Anyway, this is the box. Simple, nothing, nothing out of the ordinary. A little diagram of how the whole driver setup is made. It's got showing us as well the crossover, which was again very well designed, in that they have the 12mm driver working very much kind of like a subwoofer. Okay. And that's it. I mean, 26 ohm impedance, so relatively easy to drive, not that difficult. And yeah, inside that, what we get a carrying case, which we've really kind of seen from them. I personally don't like this kind of fake wood look, but that's me. I think just plain color or whatever would have been nicer, but look, that's just me. I think it just looks way too fake. Inside, you open it up, brings already tips that we have seen before from them. A nice selection of tips, okay, although personally I didn't find the tips to be the ideal match for the Legato, but that's me again. Brings some filters as well, as you can see, some paperwork, and yeah, it's a nice case. This actually can be removed, so you can have more space. It's a nice case. It's solid, not exactly something that you'll put in your pocket, but it's nice, it's solid, it's well done, so good stuff there. Anyway, on to the IEM. Beautiful construction. I mean, top marks. Nothing to be said with regards to the build. Absolutely spotless. By looking at the connection here of the earphone. You think it looks like an MMCX, but no, it's actually a 2-pin. I've just pulled it out slightly because it goes in there very tight. But it was a smart way of doing it. Let's put it that way. Let me just, okay, it's really tight. Okay, the cable that it brings as well, nice cable, decent enough. 3.5 termination, decent. I mean, decent. This is an IM costing $99 to $109 depending on where you get it from. I got this one from Hi-Fi Go. So it would have been nice if at least an option of a 4.4 would have been available, but it's not the deal breaker. Honestly, it isn't the deal breaker. So very nice fit. Very nice build. Solid metal shell. It's relatively small, not that heavy as well, considering that you have 2 drivers and one of them is a 12 millimeter. So I mean, it's not heavy, so it's not fatiguing to wear. Some venting holes over there, as you can see. Another one there in the front. So in terms of construction, solid. I'm using radius tips because these were the ones that, in my opinion, for me, for my ears, for my music, for what I was looking from the Legato, got me the best performance. Because the nozzle is relatively long, and with these tips, I was able to really, put the earphone deep into my ear canal and get the performance that I was looking for. All right. Anyway, I think that covers it in terms of build, accessories, everything. With regards to the physical aspects of it, I think 7Hertz knows their stuff. They know what they're doing. So top marks to them there. Okay, now let me just quickly tell you what I've got here, and then we'll get into the sound and everything. All right, I've got GQ80 from Geek World. It's an older IM, but still available at Penon. Rose Finch, Penon Serial, Venture Electronics CA, CCI HM20, and Fat Freak Maestro Mini. Okay, on the Maestro Mini, I want to thank my good friend Carlos for having been kind enough to send it to me. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. What then, or why do I have these IEMs? And I'll explain now. Okay, this, from my understanding, the design premise of the Legato was to bring us kind of an old school vibe of a sound. Something that apparently was novel, something that apparently wasn't as popular nowadays because we all are looking, or the majority of the manufacturers are going more down the road of just doing Harman tuning and so on and so forth. So that was the design premise, was to bring us an old school type of a vibe of sound, a type of a sound that was reminiscent of the late 70s and early 80s in terms of the speakers, the big home speakers. That kind of the idea was to bring us a home sound, okay, a home speaker sound. And that meant by default that we were talking about big bass, okay? Big bass, big, powerful bass with impact. And then, the rest as well as can be done, trying to match that big bass. But, sometimes things are more successfully done, other times less successfully done. And that's not to say that they haven't done a good job. They have done a good job, but I think that there has been perhaps a little bit of over-exaggeration of the capabilities of the Legato. Okay, and I'll break that down now. First of all, in terms of its type of sound, it's not the first one to have done something like that, or neither is it novel. I mean, if you guys know Penon, they are known for that type of a sound. They are known for having a type of a sound signature which is kind of a home speaker type of a sound. And I saw and I heard some comparisons of the Legato with the Serial. Let me just tell you, let me just clear straight away here. There's no comparison possible. All right. Yes. Having said that, there are occasions where the Legato actually holds its own very well and can play one or two songs better than the Serial. For example, one such song is Swept Away from Carol Duboc. But I'm not going to be mean and say 95% of the time. I'm going to say 80% of the time, the Serial shows its colors. The Serial shows its superiority. And it shows that what it was designed for has been very well done. It has been very well done and very carefully done, and it shows itself. There's just that little bit extra of everything which the Legato doesn't have. That's not to say that the effort wasn't valid. No, the effort was valid, and not to say that there can't be an improvement on this. Yes, there can be an improvement on this. So, this is not an attack on the Legato or anything. I just want to, put things in their proper place. There's no comparison, in my opinion, between the Serial and the Legato. Yes, they have some similarities in terms of what their sound is supposed to be, but it's on a different league, okay? Let's now just start breaking down everything. Bass on the Legato, it's big. Is it the quickest bass? No, it's not. It's a little bit slow sometimes, but it's not that it's bad. It's just, by comparison, the Rose Finch has just as much bass as the Legato, but it's just that little extra snappier, just that little extra quicker, and based just on that, I give the Rose Finch an advantage. Just based on that, the simple fact that we're talking about a $30 IEM that has a slightly smaller dynamic driver, 10mm, one driver, and they were able to tune it with the same kind of a bass as you get on the Legato and make it snappier, quicker. For me, it tells me one thing. It tells me that the driver that is in there is more capable than the driver that is in here in terms of the bass. That's what it tells me. It tells me that that driver that they've chosen for the Rose Finch is a driver that magnetically is superior to the driver that they've used over here. Okay? So the bass is full, it's big, it's got guts, but it's a little bit slow sometimes. Second thing, there's a bleed into the mids, which would be obvious because when you have a signature which you have the bass up here, okay, so 13 or 14 dBs over the minimum point or minimum lowest point, and then the mids never reach that same level or always below, you are going to have a signature which obviously is V, but a V signature which is heavy on the bass, okay, very much like KZ has a tendency of doing. So it will be darker sounding, and at the same time it will camouflage a lot of the capabilities that the upper frequencies can maybe manifest themselves in doing. So although the mids here by themselves are actually quite capable, because they are, the reality is that the mids are actually quite capable, a lot of that ability is camouflaged by the fact that you have got so much bass. So when I heard certain people saying that, oh, if you want that to shine, you lower the bass and you EQ it down, sorry, no. This is an IM that was made with a specific purpose, to be an IM with a bass heavy signature, and that's how it should be analyzed, as an IM that has a bass heavy signature, and see if it's been able to do that precisely the way it's supposed to be. If you want something, or if you're a person that does not like bass, then you don't buy the Legato, period, end of story. This is an IM for people that like bass, like an old school kind of bass, and that's what they were looking for. Okay, this is not an IM if you are going to be listening to jazz and you want to listen to all the squeaks and crinkles in some specific female songs. No. Male vocals. And now going down into the vocals on the mids. The male vocals are fine. They're a little bit thick, but they're fine. This kind of a signature does lend itself positive for the male vocals. However, the female vocals are overly thick. They sound too full. So it takes away a little bit of that snappiness that as well you sometimes want in a female vocal. Again, let me repeat, obviously that is a consequence of the way that this has been tuned, because the mids by themselves are actually quite good, but I am assessing it the way it's been done. I'm not now going to EQ the bass to see how the mids are. No, that doesn't make any sense. Sorry about that. As for the highs are fine. They are sufficient. They are not, I didn't find the highs to be sibilant or aggressive, or if there is any signs of sibilance or aggressiveness, obviously with so much bass, it kind of helps camouflage that. So the highs are decently done. They are just basic, they are just making it by the minimum of being able to keep up with the bass that there is present. So obviously a little bit more bass would, a little bit more treble would have been nice. But like I said, the treble that is there is decently done. It just scrapes by in terms of keeping up with the bass. And I didn't find any signs of it not being, harsh or aggressive or tiresome or anything of the sort. No. terms of timbre and tonality, when you're talking about an IM that's colored like this, obviously timbre and tonality are not going to be correct if you're looking at it on a perspective of being audiophile. I didn't find the timbre and tonality to be offensive to me personally. No, I didn't. I actually enjoyed the way that things were presented. Okay, sometimes a little bit overly thick, but nothing that kind of offended me or I said to myself, no, this is wrong. So in terms of that, I'll give it a pass there. Soundstage, it's closed. It's not a very big soundstage. It's closed in. Neither is it high, neither is it too deep. It's kind of an enclosed setting, which again coincides with what the main purpose was: a sound reminiscent of a home speaker in a home environment, in a living room or in a room or something like that. So that's okay as well. It's for what it was supposed to be doing. It's done fine. Imaging does suffer a little bit from that kind of claustrophobic tendency, okay? And detail retrieval, again, because of all the amount of bass that you have, doesn't shine as it should. That's just as simple as that. The detail retrieval, is a little bit. Funny enough, in terms of resolution, it actually is not a bad resolving IM. And some of the songs that I listen, obviously, and one of the songs that I mentioned before was Swept Away from Carol Dubois. It actually showcases nicely that ability to it being resolving. The Lady's Not Amused from Jeff Cascaro was another song that, again, I was quite impressed by how the Legato was able to do it. Witchcraft from Benno Uncle. Again, another song that the Legato actually did very nicely, better than what I was expecting. So overall, okay, just to sum it up before I then give some comparisons here. Overall, it's a valid attempt. I think it's well built. It's very well built, decently accessorized. I personally would have maybe thought about some other tips, okay, but I guess individually we can all go and look for the tips that actually work for us. So it's well accessorized, it's well built, and for the most part, the sound that was intended to be done or achieved has been achieved. It's not a novel thing. It's been done by other brands, and in my opinion, now here's where I'm going next, I believe there are other brands that do the same thing better. Okay, let's break it down now. Okay, the GQ80 from Geek World was an IEM that came and went very quickly, although, like I said, it's still available. And it had as well huge bass. I mean, when I show you the graph just now, you'll understand. Huge bass, so capable of giving you that big sound, okay? But obviously, massive V. Overall, it only really can keep up with the Legato in terms of the bass. The rest, it doesn't. It can't keep up. The Legato is a far superior IEM. But in terms of bass alone, which is the selling point of the Legato, which is the main calling card of the Legato, this actually does a pretty good job of keeping up, okay? So that's the Geek World out of the way. Done. Serial. I mean, those that follow me know I love the Serial. Serial is absolutely flawless. It's got this way of doing the bass, which is just, it is very intoxicating. You hear Witchcraft from Benno Uncle, which I just mentioned, for example, and you hear it on the Serial. And although, yes, again, we have that feeling of a closed venue, so it's a home speaker kind of a sound. It does it so well. It's kind of like I'm listening here. I'm listening to, let's say, I'm listening to a pair of Onkyo vintage speakers or a pair of Sansui vintage speakers, and on the Legato, I'm listening to a pair of Pioneer vintage speakers. It's that kind of a vibe. Onkyo and Sansui were probably two of the brands that had the better speakers of that time period. I know that for a fact. My father had some of those speakers. Kenwood as well had some very nice stuff. Even Sony had some nice stuff. Techniques had some nice stuff. Pioneer was more easily available, was a cheaper alternative to those brands, especially Onkyo and Sansui, where I came from, was very expensive. But that's the vibe, okay? If any of you can relate to that, that's the vibe. Over there, I'm listening to a vintage Onkyo with a great big 16-inch, woofer, subwoofer. It was a phenomenal speaker. I wish I had those speakers today. Honestly, I really do. Phenomenal speaker. And over here, I'm listening to like the likes of a CS939 from Pioneer. I believe that's what it was called. It sounds good. It sounds big but ultimately the details are not there. So there's just no comparison. Obviously, we're also talking $299 there against 109, so it's not an entirely fair competition. So when I actually heard people comparing the two and comparing it in a way where the Legato was coming out on top, I don't know. Okay, that's it. So Legato out of the way. This out of the way, this out of the way. Let's just push these other ones here. Okay. Now, the next one I'm going to compare it to is the CA. And the CA, the reason why I like the CA is very simple. It has basically the same sound as the serial. And by that statement alone, I've said everything. I'm going to be doing a review on that in more detail. It is a fantastic IM. And I can only say thank you again to Carlos, because he was the one that insisted I listened to the CA. And actually this set, it was a gift from him. I have since bought another, but this was a gift from him. And my friend, you were spot on. The CA is honestly a hidden gem. It's got that vintage old school sound. It is, if you don't have money to buy the serial, this is the next best thing. Honestly, if you do not have money to buy the Panon serial, the next best thing is the VCA. And again, by that statement, I said everything. It is a superior IM in every aspect for me to the Legato. It hasn't ultimately got as much bass, okay? But the bass that is present and the way that bass is then matched with the mids and the highs is being done in a way smarter, way more balanced manner. And it sounds absolutely fantastic. I mean, Unconditional from Soul Persona, CA. Swept Away, CA. House of Groove, CA. Even stuff like, for example, From Dusk to Dawn from George Duke, CA. You know, it is truly a special IM. So that's out of the way, which then leaves us with 3 IMs, okay? Which is Rosefinch, HM20, and the Fat Freak Maestro Mini. Apparently, I heard that a lot of the inspiration from this came from the Fat Freak. And speaking about the Fat Freak, I can understand now that I've listened to it, obviously, I can understand what people say about it, that it's got this really good bass, and it does. But you know, when people say, oh, bass and this and that, okay, this thing can go low. Yes, it's true, it can go low. But you want to hear bass? Get yourself a pair of MS5s and then come talk to me. Seriously, get a set of Heidi's MS5s and go see how that slams. And then come tell me that this has got a better bass. It might, in very few instances have a little bit more depth, a little bit more rumble down low, but the overall cleanliness, impact, everything, no comparison. No comparison. As compared here to the Legato, you know what? They are very evenly matched. And that's actually very good for the Legato, because we're talking $450 over there. So the simple fact that we have something like the Legato being capable of keeping up with the Fat Freak Maestro Mini, I think it's very positive. On the same token, that what basically I'm saying is I don't think the Maestro Mini is as fantastic and as great as a lot of people say it is. I don't. It's a 1+2, so it's got a unique configuration. No, it's a 1+2. And then in terms of the mids and the highs, if at least those mids and highs had been done a little bit better, then I could say, yes, okay, fine, it's got amazing bass, it does great bass, but then it has mids and highs to carry on and to keep up. And it doesn't, because I compared it with the HM20 from CCA, and I know I know this video is probably going to make a lot of enemies. But you know what? This is what I feel, and this is what I think, and this is what I believe, and this is my opinion. So, whatever. This little $60 IM, which again is said to be having this crazy amount of bass, and this is a 7mm driver, people. Even if it graphs like it's got a lot of bass, it can never have the same amount of bass as an IM that doesn't graph in the same manner, but it is a 10mm. It just can't. And although graphically, when you see the graphs, it actually looks very similar. The amount, the overall amount of the bass that's here as to the legato, it's almost identical, just a little bit less mid bass bump. So it's actually better, well done. It's more well executed in that there's not as much bleed. The reality is this little HM20, this little IEM here from CCA, yes, from KZ, is in my opinion capable of keeping up and beating the Maestro Mini in many more instances than would be expected when you consider this is $60 and this is $450. I mean, I could buy, for the amount of that costs, I can buy a Legato, I can buy HM20, I can buy a CA, I can buy the Rose Finch, and I'll still have money left over. Honestly, the Maestro Mini, again, I say and I repeat, I understand what people say about it, but no way is it worth the $450. No way, no way. There is absolutely nothing, in my opinion, that justifies that kind of price. Okay, so to finalize, Maestro Mini against the Legato. Ultimately, I think the Legato comes out on top, to be honest with you guys. To be totally honestly, I actually think the Legato comes out on top. Why? First of all, because it's cheaper, offers about 90% of the same kind of bass output, if not even more. And that so-called cleanliness that this has, which, the bass doesn't affect and doesn't muffle it and doesn't muffle it. Honestly, I mean, I used some TRI Clarion tips to really open it up, because if I had the narrow bore tips on here, it was completely closed down. So I mean, I don't know, maybe it could be my ears. Maybe I'm requiring a visit to the doctors to really get my ears cleaned out and something. But honestly, I was not wowed. I didn't hear anything here that I would say, wow, this thing really is an almost $500 IEM, and it's fantastic and it's beautiful. I mean, I respect everybody that has it and loves it. Fine, good for you. I'm glad. We can't all like the same thing, but personally, I don't feel that it's not worth that kind of money. I don't. No, because I listened to this and I listened to the Legato, and the Legato does the same thing and better in many instances. I mean, let me just put it to you. Witchcraft on the Legato is better than over here. House of Groove on the Legato versus the Maestro Mini, it's better on the Legato. So, I'm trying to give valid points to justify the price difference and to justify that this is a superior IM, but I don't see it. I don't hear it that way. And like I said, I know I'm going to be having pitchforks coming out my way and people wanting to kill me. Whatever. Hey, I can give you my address if you want and everything. So not a problem. This for me is an inferior IEM to the Legato. So that's out of the way. So the Legato, let's put it this way. Let's break it down this way. It's lost to the Serial. It's lost to the CA, and that's way more expensive. That's the same price. That's way more expensive, and it's beat the Maestro Mini. So the Legato is superior to the Maestro Mini. So that leaves us there with these two little babies, the Rose Finch and the HM20. Out of these three, which would I opt for? Honestly, if I wanted something that would really satisfy me as is in standard format, without touching anything, HM20. End of story. It's got really well done bass. It's not the fastest bass, but neither is it fast here. It's got more than enough bass to keep up with the rest of the frequency range, or rather, let me put it the other way around. The rest of the frequency range more than keeps up with the bass that is present. Not something that cannot be said here. You actually have some decent technicalities. You have more decent tone and tonality. You have a more decent soundstage, more decent imaging. You have detailed retrieval here capabilities. You have true technicalities on the HM20, where over here you have some technicalities. Okay, you don't have all of them. You have some technicalities. It is truly a very well tuned IEM that for some reason just didn't get much love. I want to understand why, but for some reason it just didn't get much love. Again, just going on to some songs here, for example, stuff like let me see here, Up and Up from Jeff Ryan. Okay, believe you can just hear it. The sax that you can hear on here, everything just sounds very composed, very correct, and everything has the right weight. Over here, it's slightly veiled. It's I don't know. It's that bass. Yes, does help in maybe controlling any possibility of some aggressiveness, but it's just closed down. Okay, fine, okay, it's been tuned that way. Well, but you can also argue that it's also been tuned in that particular way of being bass heavy, but it's more well done over there. It's better executed over there, and that's the thing here. Is I've tried to assess every one of these IMs in what their design idea was, and has it been met? Is it well done? Is it not well done? Compared to others, how is it? And yes, the first part of that criteria has been met, but compared to the other IEMs here, it's not as good. It's better than some, especially the Maestro Mini, surprisingly. Okay, honestly, I really, truly, and I say this with conviction, I truly believe that the Legato overall is an IEM that comes out on top of the Maestro Mini. That's it. I mean, just touching up here on the HM20, a song like, for example, Elephant from Carol Duboc, which is one of the songs I like listening to. It sounds fantastic, and over here there's something there that's missing, and over there it just sounds, everything is right on, it's perfect, right on time, from George Duke as well. It's another song that I usually use quite often. It sounds very good on the HM20, really, really good. Hey, this is testament that CCA and KZ can do proper IEMs if they want to, all right? So, as I was saying, out of these three, if I have them in stock format, which one I would choose? I would choose the HM20, all right? If I am prepared to do, before I say what I'm about to say, the Rose Finch, in terms of bass alone, compared to the Legato, it keeps up with the Legato very nicely. It's more impactful, so it's cleaner, it's got a harder hit. So that tells me, as I said earlier, that this driver here is probably a superior driver to the driver used here for the bass. What then happens is that the rest of the tuning here, they've purposely toned it down too much. So I've performed a little small mod like I like doing. So if I'm to compare it stock with stock, the Legato is slightly superior, not superior, slightly superior, okay? Fine, let's keep it that way. If, for those of you that have a Rose Finch and you cannot afford more than a Rose Finch, and you want to have something which sounds better than what the Rose Finch sounds in stock format and approximates itself more even and beats the Legato in many other instances that would be expected it to be able to do, then all you do is you take the stock filter that's over there. Okay, you can just see that's the stock filter. You take it out and you add a 450 filter in it. Okay, you put a 450 filter, 400 or 450, and what that basically does, and I'll show you in the graphic, just opens up a little bit more the mids, doesn't make the pin again as smooth and as brought down, and just opens up the Rose Finch completely. It loses none of its impact in the bass, none of the quality, and the sound just becomes a completely different sound. And in that format, the Rose Finch with that small little mod is an amazing IEM. I know that when I reviewed the Rose Finch, I was a little bit hard on it. I'm not gonna deny, I was a little bit hard on it because I was trying to understand why they would do this when the market was asking for different things. But I guess now, understanding and looking back in perspective, I now understand what they were trying to do. The only thing is they didn't execute it as well as they could have. If they had just not dampened the driver as much as they did, this would have had, I think, a completely different success story. Because with it modified like I did, the sound opens up so much that it becomes so much more pleasurable to listen. Yes, it is a colored IEM. Yes, it is not perfect. It's got flaws, but people, you can buy this at Keep i5 for like $27. Come on, let's not, let's not be too harsh on it. Anyway, overall, to wrap things up, as I said before, well executed IEM, well built, sounds good. The whole idea of what was the intention of the sound, has been met for the most part. There are aspects of it that obviously by the way that it's been tuned cannot be better, namely the whole technicality side of things. But there are IEMs available which have been tuned in a similar manner and are superior. So it's, as usual, it's all down to you guys. Go listen to them. Listen to them. There's nothing better than actually listening to them. Instead of just hearing me out and taking my word entirely for what I've been saying. Those of you that live in parts of the world that are lucky to have stores that you can walk into them and try IEMs and so on and so forth, go do it. Just go listen to the Legato. Take your favorite tips. Take your favorite music. And go through some music. Just listen to it and see if it rocks your world. If it's your candy. Just do it that way. All right. Anyway, guys, I'll show you now the graphs and I'll wrap up afterwards. All right. Take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section of the 7Hz Legato. Straight away, this is the graph of the Legato using the radius tip, and as we know, as was mentioned, 70, and that's 85, so 15 dBs of gain in the bass section. Okay, 15 dBs, and then obviously then the mids is substantially subdued. This is what I'm going to put now is also the Legato, but with the TRNT tip, which seems to open it up a little bit more, but it doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't. The radius, in my opinion, by the simple fact that I can actually introduce it deeper into my ear canal, is the best option for me, at least, for the Legato. Anyway, that's the Legato. The next one I'm going to show you now is straight away the KB ear rose finch. Okay, and guys, the graph speaks for itself. All right, it's got the same kind of amount of bass, a smidge, a little bit more mid bass impact, but funny enough, when you hear one and the other, it doesn't sound like there's more bleed or less bleed, because as you can see, the Legato only really corrects itself at almost 500 hertz. The KB ear goes even further than that. But listening to one and the other, it doesn't seem like it. And in stock format, as you can see, it kind of really follows very much the Legato in its spin again. Peaks at about 4, drops, coupler related peak, and then drops off. It doesn't have the kind of extension that you get over there. But look, you know what? For the below $30 price tag that it has, it offers an unbelievable bass, which is as good, if not even better than the Legato, in my opinion. All right. So that's the Rose Finch. I'll show you afterwards the Rose Finch modified, like I told you earlier. The next one is the CCA HM20. Again, as you can see, that design premise of having crazy bass, again, starts at 70, peaks at about 85, so 15 dB gain, but it's been done it's been more correctly done over here, less energetic. So the hearing perception that you get is that it doesn't bleed and doesn't correct as late as the Legato, but it actually corrects earlier. It sounds like it cleans up earlier. Okay. And then it's got a more, let's say, normal, a more harmonish kind of, let's put it that way, pin again, peaking it close to, it's 2.7, 2.8K, and then dropping off nicely, In terms of the mids, there's no comparison, in my opinion, no comparison between HM20 and the Legato. No comparison. It's a completely different beast. In terms of overall output of the bass, yes, the Legato is better because it's got a bigger driver. But for the majority of the time, and I'm going to say like 80% of the time, 85% of the time, you're not going to see a difference which is as significant as what you would think, because we are comparing basically a 12mm driver and a 7mm driver. And again, I think that this is down to the fact that XUN technology used by KZ in their dynamic drivers, he is really well done. Period. KZ has nailed the head on the nail on the head there. They really designed those drivers properly. Okay, so that's the HM20. Next one I'm going to show you now is the Fat Freak Maestro. We're just going to change the color to something that can be visibly seen better. Okay, so This is the Fat Freak Maestro. Once again, that crazy amount of bass, that's the design premise. It corrects itself by 300 hertz, so that whole thing that it's so well executed, yes, it's well executed, yes, but nothing that I personally, once I heard it, thought that it was justifying its price tag. Yes, you do notice that the ultimate quality of that bass is better, true, but it's not that it has way more slam or anything of the sort, no. And then I'm trying to understand this whole way that they've done the mids and the highs, but it sounds, if the legato, let's put it this way, let me put it to you this way, guys. If the legato already sounds relatively darkish, let's put it, okay, it isn't, that's not the best word to use, but relatively darkish because of the amount of bass that you have here. The Maestro Mini sounds even darker. It sounds even more closed in, okay? And I don't understand why. It shouldn't be like that, okay? It shouldn't be like that because, first of all, it's $450. Come on, throw in another BA or two and make it have some crazy good mids. Make it have mids like the HM. I mean, look, let me just show you this. That's the HM20 versus the Maestro Mini. I don't think I need to say a lot. Okay, yes, graphs are not, trust me, in this particular case, it does, what you see is exactly what you hear. The mids on the HM20 are way better than the mids on the Maestro Mini, all right? Anyway, let me carry on, because I still got a few more to show you. So that's the Maestro Mini. The next one, number 10, sorry. Well, basically we got it all already. Okay, just going to show you now the serial. I'm going to show you the Venture Electronics CA, and then the KB here, the Rose Finch with the modified filter. So first of all, the Pennon serial 11. Okay, there we go. By looking at this, you think, oh, okay, but across doesn't look like the serial. Well, trust me when I tell you this. Yes, it might not have that ultimate rumble over there, okay? Although you do not notice it as much. And why? Because that balance between this and the rest has been better executed. We're talking in the legato, we start off here, okay? We finish 15 dBs higher in that bass. But we finish basically, let's put it at the transition point here between the upper mids and the highs. We finish at 8 dBs. So we got 8 dB still of difference to make up for the amount of bass you have. On the serial, on the other hand, we have, and let me just take away the legato, we have the bass line, we have a 10 dB rise for the bass, okay, and we have a 9 dB rise for the mids. That's it. So everything sounds way more balanced, way more in cohesion with each other. It's a better sounding IM. Although it still has that design premise of being bass heavy, a typical Pennon ISN characteristic. Okay, so that's the serial out of the way. Next one, it's also going to be a very easy one. The Venture Electronics CA. It's very similar, guys. It's very similar. Look at the serial. Let me just take away the legato. Look. They are very similar. They sound very similar. It is, the CA is absolutely amazing. I mean, again, thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Alan, as well. Alan was also another person that told me about this. He told me that I would love it. He's right. He was right. Spot on. My man, you are spot on. Beautiful. Okay, so, there we go. Legato versus the CA. The difference that you see in the bass, it's you don't really perceive it, okay? And the way the execution of the mids and upper mids and treble has been done on the CA superior. End of story. It's better. Okay. And finally, the Rose Finch with that little small mod that I did. Let me just change here the color. Okay. And that's the Rose Finch with that mod that I did where I changed the filter for a 450. And look, all I'm going to say is if you guys have the filter on hand, just give it a try. Just give it a try. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm so positive about what I'm saying that I know it. Whoever tries it is going to be impressed, because that's the stock. Let me just take away. Okay, the lower line is the stock roast finch. The top line is the modified one with just the difference of the filter. Let me just even put different colors so you can even see it better. Okay, the darker line is the stock. The top line is the modified. And basically what I've done by not dampening it as much is made sure that that difference between the top of the base and the top of the mids, okay, there is reduced. So we're talking, so 12 dBs there, 15 there, so 3 dBs, not almost 7 like in the Legato. And this just opens up the sound completely. I mean, it is a totally different beast, the roast finch with that little small model, the 450 filter on the nozzle. All right. Anyway, guys, this has been a long review, but I wanted to really position things well and say things as they are. And that's it, guys. As always, like and subscribe. Any questions that you might have, please ask. I do my best always to answer, even if it sometimes is late, so I apologize for that. And smash that button. I want to see this channel grow, people. I want to share my passion with all of you, and I can only do it if you guys really like it, if you guys interact with me, if you guys are constructive with me, if you guys let me know what you think, what you don't think. Let's make the community grow. Let's learn from each other. All right, take care. Bye.